A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to each one of you to the inauguration of the first edition of the orientation program for the major port officers. Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority extends a special welcome to the chief guest of today's event, Dr. Malini Shankar, former DG Shipping, Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University. We welcome Sri Rajiv Sinha ji, former MD, APSEZ, Advisor JNPA and Course Director for the Orientation Program. Sri Sanjay Sethi ji, Chairman JNPA, and Sri Unmesh Sharadwag, Deputy Chairman JNPA. May I request our Chairman, Sri Sanjay Sethi ji, to please welcome the chief guest with a floral bouquet at a moment. Thank you, sir. May I request our Deputy Chairman, Sri Unmesh Sharadwag ji, to please welcome Sri Rajiv Sinha ji. Thank you, sir. May I request our Chief Manager, Administration and Secretary, Sri Jayant Dhavle ji, to please welcome our Chairman, Sri Sanjay Sethi ji. Thank you, sir. I request our Manager P&IR, Srimati Manisha Jadhav, to please welcome our Deputy Chairman, Sri Unmesh Sharadwag. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. With this, I request our Deputy Chairman, Sri Unmesh Sharadwag ji, to officially welcome you all and give the welcome address. Sir.
Respected Madam, respected Chairman Sir, Sinha Sir, Unni Krishnan ji, my colleague HODs, all the participants and friends. Let me welcome you all for this first orientation course. We are very delighted to have you all here. As we are all aware that training is very important, but when it comes to allocation of resource and time, we don't walk the talk. All the organizations give last preference to the training. But I'm very happy to tell that JNPA is an exception. During your 15 days of training, you will learn about our training institute. But during last 3.5 years, under the leadership of our chairman, this institute become world-class institute. And I am very happy to tell you that after your training, there will be one international training course where the participants from Mauritius will participate in skill upgradation. So, when this particular orientation course, when Secretary Shipping told to Chairman to organize this orientation course, I think it's 2 months back. During these last 2 months, our Chairman gave maximum time to this subject. And we had series of meetings. During these meetings, we discussed about the topics to be selected. We discussed about the faculty to be selected. We also discussed which IIM should give you 1 week long the management inputs, so that the topic should be relevant, informative and engaging. Sinha sir has long experience, so he has been assigned this particular task of course director. In the morning when he came early, before everybody else, I just sent one message to him, कि आप दुल्हन के पिता हो, तो आपको जल्दी आना ही है और सबसे आखिर में जाना है. So Sinha sir did a lot homework and also a lot of talking regarding this course. And I am very much sure that after 15 days you will realize that the topic selected, the faculty selected, they are very relevant, and whatever the course material in the training will very educative and relevant for your future jobs in the port. I will not take much time. I will wish you all the best for the training. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the warm welcome to all the participants today. Now I request Sri Rajiv Sinha ji to please give the outline of the program for which he is the course director and the Karta Dharta.
Dr. Malini Shankar, Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University. Mr. Sanjay Sethi, Chairman, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority. Mr. Sharad Bagh, the Deputy Chairman, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority. My heads of department of JNP, Dr. Unni Krishnan, and all participant colleagues. Let me first welcome you to this 2-week orientation program organized by Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority. Actually, training is a lifelong process. A lifelong learning is required for upgrading your own knowledge and keeping the sharpness which is required to serve your organization. In that respect, I think JNPA has taken a very big, giant step towards providing opportunity of training to the officers. As far as I remember, having worked in major ports, ports have not been engaged in organizing training programs. And if they have any training program, that was local to their own officers. It was not where intermixing of officers from various major ports for training purposes, an exchange of knowledge has taken place. In that way, for this, I think Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority and its chairman need to be appreciated for starting this initiative, which Deputy Chairman Mr. Bagh said they are likely or would try to continue. Actually, if you see, manpower is an important asset for any port. And like any other asset, this asset needs also to be refurbished, renovated, refreshed, maintained and managed. Because whatever you do in port, you require this human side, the human asset, take it forward. So, being important, this asset needs to be given due attention. And knowledge these days is fast becoming redundant. What we did earlier in work, we find that after some time that has changed. Take port for instance. Twin deckers, some people who are in the port, perhaps not you. Twin deckers were the main ships, cargo horses of the port in earlier times, 30, 40 years back. They are nowhere seen. Container started in 1954 in US, container as a business. Not started by port, it was started by a transporter. And then it has taken over the world, and so much so that some of you from traffic side would know that even steel is going into containers. And coffee, etc., which is to be the bulk cargo or break bulk cargo, is going in containers. So this 2-week program, considering the vast area that port is, will be very fast-paced, will be intensive. Therefore, you need to take care to learn, follow as much as possible in the various lectures and follow it up with consultations thereafter. Now, port is a challenging and demanding business. Most of you know that. Port has no demand of its own. Port service has no demand of its own. You don't create any demand. Demand is created by the export-import trade. It is created by manufacturing activities. It is created by global trade, requirement of various countries, supply-demand mismatch in commodities, and all that. So, port has to change to meet these demands. Therefore, ports becomes a very demanding and, business and requires it to change with times. If you don't change with times, or port does not change with times, it is relegated to redundancies. You are seeing many ports in India which have become redundant or are becoming redundant because they didn't change with times. Singapore is a very good example changing with times. It used to be a coal port in a steam engine era of ships. And it changed to the biggest container port or second biggest container port in the world, entirely almost based on transshipment. They caught on the opportunity. And unfortunately in India, we missed that trend of change in cargo. As a result, Dubai, Colombo, other ports grew at our expense. And JNP has come in between to fill the gap. But then it also needs to rediscover itself, which you will hear in your first week of the program, how JNP is trying to get over the disability or the deficiency which is staring at our face and needs to be removed in the interest of the country, economy, and also the port. Coming to the program, the first week of your 2-week schedule will be mostly taken by experts in their field, domain experts as such. They will be covering the areas which are more direct and core to the port. And in that, you will be able to hear about contract management, how to manage it so that disputes don't arise, how to take care so that arbitrations don't take place, and how, if arbitration takes place, to be on top, not to lose, as ports most of the time in arbitrations, as you know, are losing. Hardly any arbitration case is won by the port. And disputes are numerous. It will also have the advantage of PPP, public-private partnership projects, how to choose them, how to go about it, concession agreements, how to manage that contract process of awarding PPP project and other contracts as well. It will also have a seminar on the terminal handling operations, where the ship owners, shipping lines, cargo owners, terminal operators, cargo aggregators, and others will participate and try to give their side of expectation from the terminal operation, which should be exciting. The second week, one more point in the first week, it will also have a project or case study about which you have been informed. We will talk about this in the next session, not taking much time here because it's specific to your course. But it will have a project or casework where we would expect you to work in a team and come out with your problems, find your own solutions, and we will help you in that, and even the second week program that is with help of IIM faculty should help you in finding solutions to your areas of interest which you will bring out in your project. Second week of this course is about management. Management is required everywhere in the business. Now this part of second week will be taken up by the faculty from IIM Indore, Indian Institute of Management, Indore. They will of course cover HR side, which would be interpersonal relationship, how to manage self, how to manage organization, the conflict management, the organization growth. And without finance, I don't find many people from finance in this group, having seen the list of the participants. Now, on finance side, it will be covering also project finance, it will cover corporate finance, and it will also cover international finance. IIM faculty also will take competition management, which is so crucial for a port and port business. Because we had to compress too many subjects in a very short time of 2 weeks. Regretfully, we had to leave out many areas which are necessarily integral to the port. But then, time being constrained, we had to keep it out. And I found a letter from Dr. Shankar, VC IMU, pointing out that some of these areas need to be covered, like international maritime law. Now, port-ship interface is an area that we could not cover in these 2 weeks. You know, port needs ships for business, and ships need port for their business. So it is a very symbiotic relationship. These two are the two sides of the same coin. But then, thereafter, there is a lot of difference between the two. Shipping is an international business, and ship owners and shipping lines have choice to go to large number of ports. They can choose, pick and choose, whereas ports have no choice. They have to make themselves efficient, smart, with systems and processes in order to attract the shipping lines and the cargo. It goes the same with bulk, it goes the same with liquid. In liquid, the role of port becomes far less as compared to bulk and containers. Now, shipping law, therefore, an important part of the port business which we ought to know. However, we could not include that, and perhaps in some other program we would like to take care of this aspect. The business of port therefore becomes far more demanding and challenging, because you have to attract cargo and you have no choice. Therefore, investment in port also, to an extent, is considered to be risky. But considering from the national economy point of view, the cost of this risk is lower than the cost to the national economy. Therefore, you develop ports. Even though there are risks around, because economy needs it. But then, it goes without saying that developing a port is one thing and operating a port is another. Unfortunately, commercially, governments have not been known to be smart, savvy, speedy in managing commercial operations. As a result, all over the world, the commercial operations are being handed over or have been handed over to the private sector. it has gone forward, and JNPT has taken the first step, biggest step in the country to become a landlord port. It is the first instance in our country where a port has become a landlord port. Incidentally, JNP was the first port where in major port PPP started, or PPP started in India with JNP in 97, when the first container terminal was developed by private sector, which was the then PO Ports, which has become now owned by DPW, Dubai Port World of Dubai. Now you will hear from this story, the challenges, how it has gone about, from Mr. Sanjay Sethi itself, who is spearheaded the whole initiative of converting JNPT into a landlord port. Considering the fact that JNPT is getting saturated and country needs more container handling capacity, JNP has taken further initiative in association or in joint venture with Maharashtra Maritime Board to develop another modern all-weather port at Vadhavan. You will hear about that from Mr. Wagh, Deputy Chairman. This port is slated to put India in the 10 biggest container ports in the world, having capacity of 21 million TEUs when fully developed. And this is going to be the biggest investment in port sector in the country. Now, it would be able to take the biggest container vessel size, which is, as you know, 24,000 TEUs, 500 meters long ship. You can imagine that kind of ship coming to India, which cannot come at any of the port of the country today. Mundra, of course, is trying for it. It requires 18 to 18.5 meters of draft when fully loaded. So, I think I have covered. If anything more remains, because I am with you all these 2 weeks to discuss with you. If you have problem, feel free. This is an occasion when you would be able to ask the difficult issues and questions that you face in your work and get the perspective of your colleagues and also the faculty and domain experts, which would make you better in your work. I'm sure that if you get good inputs, your output is going also to improve. So, not taking much time, I must welcome you to this 2-week training program, and I hope that it will be rewarding experience for you, and it will also instill in you a desire to keep learning and upgrading yourself by your own efforts, thinking that professional knowledge is not one time. It needs to be upgraded, it needs to be refurbished like any other asset, and you are the asset for the port. So a lot depends on you as to how capable and effective you are in your own jobs. With all this few words, I welcome you and hope that your stay here will be very comfortable and you will enjoy the training program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the brief outline of the 2 weeks program and also emphasizing the need for constant learning and upgradation by our government port officers in order to be relevant with the current trend. Thank you, sir. With this, it's a time for presidential address by our chairman, Shri Sanjay Sethi ji, under whose dynamic leadership the first edition of orientation program for port officers has taken shape. Sir.
Dr. Malini Shankar, Vice Chancellor IMU, Sinha Sir, Mr. Unmesh Wagh, all our heads of departments and all the participants in this course. Let me start by pointing to the commonality of the people on the stage. I think the kind of passion, the kind of energy that that Madam has, that Mr. Sinha has, and of course my Deputy Chairman. You know, this whole thing of saying that training doesn't get the kind of importance it deserves. We do a lot of lip service about it, but we don't really convert it into reality. But when I was talking to a madam who right now, in a way, is totally involved in this vocation, where you are preparing the next generations, where you are probably doing the most important part of you know, when we say soft skills, actually it means that even if you are able to change that thinking a little bit, we typically say knowledge, attitude, skills, or whatever what training is supposed to impart. But I think it is that that difference in your thinking, which was being pointed out just now, that because of A, lecture, or B, reading material, or C, interaction with some of your colleagues, which changes that, which makes you think differently, makes you see things in a different light. And I think that is where the difference is. The kind of passion Sinha sir brought to this whole exercise, when he sort of takes a lot of pride in saying that the devil or God is in detail. He takes a lot of pride in looking at all the details. So be prepared for some fault finding exercise there for all of you, where the idea is that only if you will pay that kind of attention. I think the maxim goes that, you know, the paying attention and getting attention are very strong emotions. And mostly if you pay attention, then you get attention. You know, so this paying attention part is a very, very important part of this whole story. And I think Malini Shankar madam, throughout her career, she is my senior from Maharashtra cadre, so I have been following her on that. And even after, this is a post-retirement posting, but she brings equal passion and equal dedication to this assignment. So I first of all thank both of them for being here, for being an integral part of you know, this program that we have tried to create. Going to the slide genesis or the history, in 2019 when I came in and we were having a chat with the then secretary, Mr. Gopal Krishna, who will, by the way, also come and address you in one of the sessions for this. We've tried to make the faculty as good as possible for you. So when he said that, you know, we were discussing that in the port sector, people join, and that includes even the deputy chairman and chairman who coming from completely different sectors. And there is nothing called a foundation course. A foundation course basically means that in various services, in our own IAS or everything, there's a good foundation course where you at least are apprised of everything that you're going to deal with. But in the port, most of the time you just jump into the pool and you know, start swimming. So it started with the idea of a foundation course. And when we said that this must happen for all the people, there are these guidelines that came in 2020. If you look at those guidelines, they talk about this as a foundation course, where within, let's say, first 2-3 years, you must be getting that course. Now, the practical part for us was that last few years, there is no recruitment in the port sector. And then we try to say, all right, whether 5 years or 10 years, but we must collect people who, are relatively fresh. A lot of you might have even done more than that, because we were talking to your chairman, and we thought, we must get good participation. So, and it also becomes an exercise beyond this, where after every few years, after every 5 years, you must get this kind of orientation. And of course, the level of topics will change, the kind of discussions that will change, but we have, as per those guidelines, we have tried to even link it to the promotion. So, from going on from here, these courses will become a formal requirement for your promotions, and the ministry is serious on that. And once we are able to see the output of this, we will try and work it in a way where, whether 2 programs a year or whether 1 program a year, that of course will evolve depending on the numbers and depending on the requirements. So from here on, this will go like this. And hopefully, because this is the first program, and as you can see that we've tried our best to put everything together in a way that you get the best inputs, you get a very, very good experience. This particular guideline, or this circular that talks about these trainings, in fact, divides these trainings between or amongst 3 institutions. One is IMU, then JNPA. In fact, JNPA in that is supposed to conduct as many as 89 fields of training programs. And of course, IPA in association with some other organizations. 89 may or may not be such a realistic thing to do. I mean, 89 training programs may not happen in a year, but a lot of those topics we will try and cover. And JNPA has that advantage of being the laboratory for you. That's the best part. The best part is that when we talk about today that why JNPA? So first is something about containerization was just said. We probably still do more than all the major ports put together. We still do more containers here. Containerization in the world is a norm today. Even in the developing countries, the percentage or not so developed, meaning the lesser developed countries also have shifted to a huge amount of containerization, which India still has to catch pace with. And within the major ports, it has been JNPA. So the first part that you probably get to see here is this whole ecosystem on containers, on containerization. When I use the word ecosystem, it means that if there's a container freight station, the kind of stakeholders that come in fact, in a way, when we talk about port community systems, we talk about national logistics portal, marine part that we look at. So all that is focused on the container part. All the ease of doing business rankings are fixed on the containerization thing. So in a way, in a sense, whatever you're going to deal with in the next few years, when containerization, the percentage goes up, most of the ports also try and change their infrastructure. They say in the history of this port, that was the big step taken when we converted our terminal into a container terminal. And that is how the story went on. Today in the country, in the private sector, as you would all know, Mundra is the other port which does, in fact now they do a little more than us, because there's a lot of transshipment also that happens there, and transshipment part also gets covered in that figure. But between Mundra and JNPA, in fact what we say is that these are the things to study. So a very big part when we are discussing is all about efficiencies. And in those efficiencies, we we've been now quoting this study last year, madam. In fact, this is totally independent and NCAR-based thing, which did a study on port performance. So the claim that we are today making on the best performing port comes from that study, because it actually talks about 11 parameters. And let me tell you that that's about the whole ecosystem. So ecosystem means that, of course, the main parameters include the time and cost related. But time and cost related includes even customs, includes the rest of the ecosystem, where I like to mention that they have perception index on bribes, for example. It talks about whether there are mafias operating, whether you know the kind of parameters that it talks about. Of course, JNPA is number one there, but JNPA is the only public port within those top 5, top 7, or whatever. But what we are trying to tell you is that this is the right place to know and understand the ecosystem of the containers, or of the kind of traffic that you will deal with, that is going to be the norm from here. The second part that was mentioned a little was about that last year or so now. In fact, the last concession agreement is signed just maybe within the last month. We have become a landlord model port, and this is again a kind of a watershed, because what we are saying is this is how all the modern ports all over the world operate. This is, of course, this is now a part of the act which tells our ports now to get into a landlord model. It basically means that government has no business to be in business, which basically means that day-to-day operation you should not be doing, but you should be talking about all other things. So when we say that, does our role go any less? How will the role change? Of course, we will have a detailed session on this. But some of these experiments, initiatives, innovations that we've done last few years are for you people to see and also learn. So I would strongly encourage talking about the SEZ that we've started. There's a special economic zone that has come up just next to the port. I'm sure we'll fit in somewhere for you people to see it. That is about saying, I'm just giving 2 or 3 examples. There's plenty to see. It is about saying that this whole thing of end-to-end logistics. So ports are no longer the places where just the vessels come and loading and unloading happens. The ports of the future, the ports that are going to compete from now on, you have to stand to compete, because everywhere you can see that for one major port, 2 or 3 private guys are already there. I mean, whether it is mostly Adani's or not, but some groups have started coming up, and you have that competition to face. So you have to know and realize that this competition means that you will have to look at ports as end-to-end logistics. Creating an SEZ, creating warehousing spaces, creating this kind of thing is one example of that, which will make you understand this. Second, I would like you to encourage to see the common parking plaza. The common parking plaza has created a dispensation where the whole story of exports, when we said dwell times, when we talked about direct port entry and direct port delivery, direct port entry has completely changed. The whole time for us for the exporters, again, we'll give you the figures where say ports like Mundra or whatever are not even close. The kind of dwell time changes that have happened in the last few years also. So common parking plaza is an experiment where there is a state-of-the-art facility created for almost 3,000 trucks, We get as many as 12 to 15,000 trucks in this port every day. So of course, when we say 3,000, of course, if the average time there is 4 to 5 hours, a lot many can change within a day. So that provides a very good use of technology, of using smart parking, of also a very good synergy with the customs department. What has happened over the years is these missing links of operating in isolation, just thinking port authority means port authority. We will try and break some part of that, and because without that it's not possible. It's not possible to even imagine today that you can perform. So those areas also I would like to encourage. The ports where some of the terminal operators, let's say in our port, are world's best, whether it's Maersk operating, whether even the new port terminal that is going has combined with CMA CGM. These are the out of the top 3 shipping lines, these are 2 shipping lines. There is a DP World, Dubai Port World, and Port of Singapore Authority. So they bring in some of the best practices that are used for efficiency, for greening, that is sustainability, and for smart port, which means the digitization. So some of these things, let's say the GTI terminal, which is the Maersk terminal, has been, if you have these these regular studies that are done by organizations like DMIDC, etc., it has maintained its topmost position for the last so many years. So it is the most efficient port terminal being run. The kind of what is called lean is just an acronym which basically is showing you those practices. Try and see how much goes into that detail when we are talking about where there's a protocol about, let's say, how much air goes into a tire. Right? So when you say understand that, when I'm putting, management is all about understanding. I'm using the word again and again, paying attention. So if you've not paid attention and not put this floral arrangement right, the whole thing is gone. So how much of a protocol can go into improving efficiencies? That will be the third part. Fourth one is something which is very, very close to my heart. You may not be able to see the final results, but we started working on something of the rejuvenation of our lakes. There are 4 or 5 lakes that we've created, where how it can be joined, how the ecosystem can change. Of course, there is a lot more. I don't think I should be taking more time than this, so that the time management part does well. But I welcome you all. I promise that this should be a very, very enriching, fruitful cause for you, and I hope you all will create memories and take some good takeaways from this course. All the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the insight how this course was conceptualized, and we hope all of you make the most of these 2 weeks. Now it's a time for inauguration of the first edition of the orientation program for major port officers. May I request our chief guest of today's event, Dr. Malini Shankar, to please inaugurate the training program with the lighting of the lamp, the auspicious way to start this first of its kind initiative by Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, which has been undertaken by JN Port. May I request everyone to please rise up for the inauguration with a round of applause for the formal inauguration and the start of this beautiful program. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir. It's time to hear from our chief guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our chief guest, Dr. Malini Shankar, with a huge round of applause.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sinha, the architect of this training program, if I may say so, my friend Sanjay Sethi, who is the chairperson of JNPA, my friend and erstwhile neighbor, Mr. Unmesh Wagh, when I was living in Kolaba, Mr. Unni Krishnan, and participants of this training program, as well as the entire team which put this training program together. I think we owe it to them. At the outset, I'd like to thank the chairperson and for having invited me, chairperson of JNPA, for this program. I still recall the time that, there was a training plan, a training policy for the shipping industry, which was framed by the Ministry of Port Shipping and Waterways. And because of the pandemic, it had gone into a kind of stasis. It was in hibernation. So we had to put our hands together, Mr. Sethi, myself, and the other persons, other ports. And I still remember that meeting we had in July 2022, where we said, what do we do with this? It's just lying there. And from there, I'm very glad that Mr. Sethi took the lead, took the initiative, and nudged it and pushed it because it had to go right up till the ministry. And as a result of it, we have this inauguration of the formal training program today. I would like to commend at the outset Mr. Sethi and his team for having taken the interest and being committed to something which is what everybody has described as peripheral to the operations of a port, or considered to be peripheral. And the level of interest they have taken, and Mr. Sethi in person, is, look at the setting they have organized. Otherwise, it's in the four walls of the room, and you just keep sitting in that room the whole day. To just bring it into an open auditorium, I think it gives a very different feel, and it makes you feel, there's a sense of belonging when you come here, and you know that somebody has put their heart into it. It is not just what I normally think is what I call a checklist program. Okay. Even Mr. Sethi mentioned that it is required for promotions. I hope it doesn't become, you have to get promoted, so you go for this training and sit there physically, but I don't know, your presence there in mind. You checklist and say, okay, I have done this, and my promotion, I will eligible for promotion. I would like to start with a quote that I read yesterday, which I found interesting. Of course, what you absorb at any point of time is the receptivity that you have at that point of time. Let me also, put it in context. It's a very simple quote. It said, learning is an experience. Everything else is just information. So learning is an experience. Everything else is an information. So we have lots of information. I hope these 2 weeks will give you real learning, which is an experience. Now, the context has been set by Mr. Sinha as well as, Mr. Sethi. It's no longer business as usual for the ports. The ports have a very hoary past. It started way, way back, 100 years ago plus. But in the last few years, we have seen, due to changes, due to, initiatives taken within this country, as well as the trends which are there across the world, it's not business as usual. You just look at the rapid changes in technology, which force you to think, how do you apply technology in better management of ports? And some of us would be involved in the technology itself, but most of us would be involved in management of technology. But you have to understand the principles and the approaches to the technology to see how far you can improve it, develop on it. Revenue models have changed. Just 15 years back, I think the ports, it was business as usual. I run the port, I give these charges, take it or leave it. If you take it, you're welcome. If you don't take it, you can go somewhere else. And somewhere else will be the same issue. So ownership models have changed. We just heard that JNPA is the first port to have a land model, landowner model. Those are changing rapidly. We did not have VTS or VTMS many years ago. Now, if you don't have it, your port doesn't exist. And even logistics and supply chain. Mr. Sinha rightly pointed out, ports and shipping are what we call derived demands. If there is no manufacture, if there is no trade, if there is no goods, if there is no service, then there is really no need for ports and ships. But there, during the pandemic, we've seen huge changes in the supply chain demand. So we have to be aware of these changes. We have to meet the demands and the expectations of the industry. We exist because the industry exists. We exist because the industry wants us to improve. We don't exist for ourselves. This is something we have to remind ourselves. So, if you look at the beginning, the British set up the ports and the British wanted the workers or staff or employees in the port to just do the clerical work. They were just assistants. The decision makers were somebody else, that British gentleman sitting somewhere or his representative. Now each one of you should go, is expected to go into a decision maker's role. So your responsibilities go from the fundamental, I keep records, I keep information, to I have to learn and I have to monitor. For example, if we look at landlord model, if you look at all the terms and conditions which are part of that agreement, those are something which are actually done by some consultant or an expert, right? You are not the lawyer. There's a legal expert who does all that. And I can tell you over the years, what I have found is what can be written in 2 or 3 pages is now written in 100 pages, right? The legal document. So by the time you come to the 10th page, you've forgotten what the first 2 pages are. So are you expected to read all that? Yes and no. You have to know what is in it, but more importantly, you have to know how to monitor it, how to ensure compliance. I think that is the most important thing in very many government organizations today as the models change, the revenue models change. I don't do the day-to-day operations, but I will let it out to somebody. That's a legal part, but most important in government and the most neglected, unfortunately, in my own experience, is the monitoring part. We let that go, and then after a few years, you'll find that you've got a big baby that you're holding and you don't know what to do with it. Now think of the land, think of the older ports where they have land, and that land has been given on 99-year lease, and now you have a huge problem of how to deal with it because things have changed. Things have kept changing, but we have not monitored. If we had monitored as per that agreement, and those old agreements are very cryptic, they're very 3 pages long, that's all. And they said every 3 years, for example, you will triple the land revenue. Of course, what happens is a land revenue was 1 rupee in 100 years ago and it didn't have any value. So you said, why should I triple it? What will I get? 3 rupees even if I triple it. But what has happened as a result is you don't even look at the document. You've not monitored it. You've not surveyed the land. So this is how, and this is just an ancient example I'm giving you, but even going ahead, some of the agreements we do today are more complicated than the agreements of 99 years. So these agreements, we have to understand what is there, and I think such training programs will give you the, somebody is going to hold your hand and say, okay, don't read all the 100 pages, but actually if you ask me, a real training program will say, okay, read all those 100 pages tonight and tomorrow we'll discuss it, right? The discussion is the most important part. I think there's also another part to this, which is the sensitivity. So the changing models say that we are no longer, government for government's sake. I am the Lord and I am the Lord and Master of everything. What I say is final and you shall do what I say. Now that model has changed over the past 2 decades, and there is a customer, there is a client. So do we know customer relationship? Do we know client relationship? Do we know client benefits, and do we know what the client is asking? Because our prosperity as ports, our prosperity as individuals, as part of the port community, depends on whether the customer is happy or client is happy. So because you have competition today and they can just go, there is a port, for example, in Chennai, there's Krishnapatnam port biting at the heels of Chennai and Ennore port, right? Literally biting at the heels, and they will offer a spectrum of services. But we can't say that that person is paid more than me, so, how can we offer? No, there are methods to offer. We have to be aware of it. We have to be sensitive to the customer relation. Even simple things like legally, the ports are expected to have reception facilities. Now, I say reception facilities of 2 kinds, reception facility for the waste, that's one part of it, and reception facility for the seafarers. And very often, we'll see ports have a reception facility on paper for both, but whether end-to-end operations is there. I mean, does the reception facility for a seafarer actually have a reception facility in letter and in spirit, where the seafarer goes, stays there for 2-3 hours, does the paperwork, and either enters the ship or leaves the ship? Reception facility for waste, for example, and one day this will come again, clawing at you. The reception facility for waste is it really end-to-end where it is evacuated and sent properly to the reception center, or is it just, you close your eyes and then it is just dumped into the sea? Someday all this will hit back at you. We have to be sensitive about many of these things. Learning, as I said, do we close our eyes, put our horse blinkers and say, this is all I have to know because this is all I have to deal with? For example, if I'm the legal expert, do I say I know how to interpret these rules, but I don't know the ecosystem in which it is situated? So I'll give you an example. As a probationer, when I joined in Nagpur, there was a auditor general, auditor came, CAG audit came, and they were auditing the Flying Club of Nagpur, okay, Flying Club. The question raised by the auditor, we didn't know how to answer because he said, why are you changing, tires of that plane? This is a training aircraft, twin-seater training, small Cessna flight. The tires were being changed. So the auditor asked the question, how many kilometers did this tire run before you change it? So we all chuckled there, sitting there saying, because that person, and the reason I'm giving this example is, you can't, take what applies to a car, saying the car runs so many kilometers, and apply to an aircraft which has only landings and takeoffs. And this auditor came across as a fool. But we all had to keep quiet, right? Because he's the auditor, you can't ask questions. So you have to know what you're talking about. You have to know beyond what your responsibility is, because you don't want to get caught in a situation where such silly questions are raised, or silly questions are raised at least in your mind. And you also have to prepare yourself for your next level of responsibility. So I think what we are doing here in terms of training is actually building the social capital. See, when you have development of a country and we talk about GDP, etc., there is infrastructure capital, and which is a physical part of it, bridges, roads, ports, etc. And there is a social capital, which is the capacity building of an individual and of an institution. And this is where, if we have to put, work towards the achieving the goals that the government of India has set for us and for the country, is like Make in India, Gati Shakti. It can take place only if we raise the level of social capital. Otherwise, we will be where we are, business as usual, and we will keep taking experts. When we look for experts, when we look for consultants, we'll continue to look for consultants from the Western world, or even East Asian countries which have acquired these expertise, like, so I mentioned, like Singapore, etc. When is it that we are going to say, we will offer you the expertise, and that is how we raise this social capital? Part of this training also I would consider to be upskilling and reskilling. Upskilling, I said, is that if we were doing clerical work so far, we have to upskill ourselves to do monitoring, supervising. These are the skills. And I'll guarantee you, when you get to that level, you'll feel extremely satisfied. Otherwise, there are some times we ask ourselves, we're doing the same job for years together. What is it? If you raise the bar a little bit for yourself, you will definitely feel the satisfaction that you have grown as a person and as a professional within that organization. So that is upskilling. Reskilling has two benefits. I'm sure a lot of you think, when we go for training, what is in it for me? What am I going to gain? I'm sure people have said, but I'm not going to learn anything, I know everything. So this I know everything is an attitude we need to keep aside, because there's nothing we know in this rapidly changing world. But if I have to do benefit selling for you, there is, on the one side, yes, we speak about professional benefits, which is the port will gain, all the parameters, the efficiency parameters will improve. But as a person, I think you will acquire skills that on a day when you choose to lay down your office and say, I've had enough, I'd like to move out, or I'd like to go home, it will stand you in very good stead in whatever you choose to do in the future, either within the organization or even outside the organization. Never stop learning. That's why I like that first quote that I gave. I'm going to just spend 2 minutes sharing an experience of the importance of training, importance of workshops, etc. I was heading a World Bank project in water supply and sanitation. And the World Bank, and it was UK government assisted project also. So they used to keep telling so many things, and the project was very interesting. It had a long title called Integrated Water Supply Project, Integrated Water Supply, Environmental Sanitation, Public Participation, blah, blah, blah project, okay? And people couldn't quite understand, this was 30 years back, they couldn't understand the gamut of this. They know water supply, I'm an engineer, I will supply water, and if you get it, fine, if you don't get it, too bad. No, that was the attitude. So the reports that we had to give, the changes that we had to do, it was absolutely not understood by the last person in that chain of human decision makers. So one day there is a UK lady who came and she was holding a 2-day workshop in Pune, and this was mid-90s when staying in a hotel was considered a huge luxury, even a 3-star hotel. So they had this in Pune, and what I decided to do is, they said you have to come. So I said, okay, I'll come. But I actually sent, undersecretaries and desk officers. And I said, you go and stay in the hotel, you take your spouse and go. You attend the workshop and you can stay 1 extra day. So this was like a huge, benefit, luxury those days. And I had told the organizers that you tell them I'm coming, but I'm not coming. Because if I come and sit there, they will not talk. They'll not learn anything. They'll just keep quiet. So this group of 20, 30 people attended. And when at the end of it, this person comes back, who was my desk officer, who I had not seen any productive work from him, because I didn't know how to push him, nudge him. But to my surprise of surprises, he came. He says, ma'am, now I understood what you want. You give me 1 week's time, I'll produce the report. And he did. Now, obviously at his level, he can't produce, masterpiece, but I think that he went from almost negative, not zero, to something he produced because he was listening to people. He was interacting and he had that freedom. So this is what a change can do if you are open to and receptive to what is being told in those 4 walls. Now the other example I'd like to give is very pertinent to ports, very, very pertinent, because as DG Shipping, I think those in Kamaraj Port and Chennai Port were very aware that there was this collision of 2 ships outside the Ennore port in 2017. And there was oil spill. Now, to make a very long story short, because I can give a talk on that, what the ports lacked. Now, they told me there is no SOP. And then my batchmate in petroleum said there is an SOP, because the cargo belonged to petroleum, so he was involved. There was an SOP. So when we got the SOP, we found nobody had, I'm just paraphrasing it very simply. It is not meant to pass criticism on anybody. So the SOP was found, nobody had read it. When they read it, nobody understood it. When they understood it, they said equipment, you start searching for the equipment. When the equipment, they said, yeah, there is an equipment there, it was under lock and key, the person was missing. So you have this whole series, and I think, by the time we got through all this, we had to actually break each of that supply chain and say, where is the SOP? Where is a person who has read the SOP? Where is this equipment? Who knows? And then when we finally found the person, he didn't know how to operate the equipment because the equipment had not been tested for many years. Now, as I said, it's a caricature kind of thing, but each of this is just about oil spill. There'll be several things where you have to be up to the mark. And they came back to me as DG Shipping and they said, do you know where we can buy buoys on an emergency basis? Now the DG Shipping does not know how to buy these buoys. It's the port which knows. So we're going in circles. Again and again, let me emphasize, this is not to show fingers at anybody, but we all have to be aware, and such And this is why trainings become important, drills become important, interactions become important. So I would, and in future, we'd like to see, Mr. Sethi mentioned 89 courses. All 89 obviously may not be of the same degree of importance, and we will not be able to conduct all 89. And this will be revised and reviewed periodically. For example, in the Maritime University, we are looking at arbitration. We've already started online training in arbitration. We have experts from Hong Kong who do that. So very, very important, because we don't understand the contents of that document. We don't understand arbitration, so we just let it go. Or in maritime sector, I find there is a slight disadvantage is you call the expert, but normally I find all the experts are connected to some industry. So we need to have in-house understanding to a certain point. You'll always need experts. We're not saying that those experts are not useful, but we have to be having that understanding to be able to question the expert as to why they're taking the decision. So if you don't have that skill and confidence, you will not be able to question the expert. And the more you question the expert, the better you will get results which are in favor of your organization. So maritime analytics is another one we are looking at. Of course, this is at the shipping side, but there is no harm in looking at the port side also. So I'd like to just end with a thought, which is the success of the training program, if it doesn't have to remain on paper, actually depends on the interest you take. It is not what the person comes and gives you as lectures, but the interest you take, the number of questions you ask. Please don't hesitate to ask questions. Don't laugh at each other. Some of them can be silly questions. Silly questions actually open up the discussion a lot, so don't be hesitant. Don't, say, maybe what will people think of me, they'll laugh at me. No, ask questions. If they're true experts, you will get the best knowledge from there. And learn from each other. One of the things one of the outcomes of organizing such training program outside your institution, because chairpersons will say, no, but I can't let this person go for 3 days. Okay? It will just hamper the activities and operations of the port. But look at yourself, again, come back to what's in it for me. I think it's time out of your routine, time to think of yourself, time to think of whether you're doing the things right. You look at, reflect on some of the things. And this interaction across the representatives of different ports will be really, really enriching your mind, broadening your mind, enriching the content, and you'll go back. If you have learned just 2 things, take homes, like you said, if takeaways, if you've just taken solid, concrete 2 aspects, it'll hold you in great stead, both as a person as well as a professional. So just remember, it's a rejuvenation of the mind, it's a lovely setting, and you drive the program. So it's up to you. And thank you so much for having patiently heard me out, and all the best for good program.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The words of appreciation, motivation, and inspiration coming from you means a lot to us. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request our Chief Manager Administration and Secretary, Shri Jayawant Dhavle, to please extend the vote of thanks.
Good morning to all. First of all, I will like to thank to Madam Malini Shankarji, Vice Chancellor of the Maritime University. And Madam, you are having the long association with this our port. When I joined, that time you were the board of director of this port. And today you are blessing this occasion. That is a great pleasure for us. So please give the big hand for the Madam to be the chief guest of today's function. I would like to thank to our dynamic chairman, Sri Sanjay Ji Sethi, for taking an initiative for organizing the training program at JNPA. I would like to thank the Deputy Chairman, Sri Unmesh Wagh, for coordinating the entire schedule of the training program. And I would like to thank Sri Rajiv Sinha Ji, Advisor JNPT. And I will like to thank Sri Dr. Unni Krishnan. They are the main designer of these training courses. They have taken series of meetings to design these courses, fitting into our port officers and fitting to our port sector. Lot of efforts are taken by the Sinha sir. Lot of series of meetings we have taken under the chairmanship of our chairman and Sinha sir. And today we are seeing this day. I would like to thank my all port officers, particularly Manisha Jadhav, Ambika ji, Bharat Madhvi, and other my head of the departments. They are also given the full support. We are having the series of meetings to conduct this training program. I would like to thank all the port chairmen, deputy chairmen, secretaries, head of the departments for deputing you for this wonderful training program. And first of all, I will thank to all you participants to attending this training program. Without your attendance, it was not possible to conduct this training program. I will like to thank all my department's people, and I will like to thank to all the peoples, those are directly and indirectly involved in this such a beautiful program. You please feel free, any problem, any difficulty, we are there. My team is there to guide you, to help you. And during your training sessions, I got that much confidence. You are going to take good memories from this training program and good knowledge. Thank you once and all to each and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone. We start with 2 weeks of this program with positive outlook and mindset of skilling, reskilling, upgradation, and learning. But before that, we would like to capture this moment with a group photo. We would assemble outside the admin building for the group photo, and then we proceed for the training program, which will be at our JNPA Training Center, which is just a walk away. Thank you.